speaks very loudly of the ignorance of the hotel developers and particularly the hotel brands that came in, that they did not embrace the community. In fact, at that time, many hotels or resorts, it was like a gated community only for hotel guests.
Right.
So that's not today anymore. That has changed completely. We don't have gates for a hotel where the property you have only hotel guests. In fact, you embrace community because that's the key to success nowadays for a successful resort.
This is Pay Me in Plane Tickets. Enjoy. But Sam, I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the Pay Me in Plane Tickets podcast, where we talk travel, we talk hospitality, we talk business, and we kind of bring it all in one encompassing sort of bucket and share your story as well. So I wanted to start off because I was introduced to you through Tamina, who we just recently had on, where she was discussing the importance of AI in hospitality, and we kind of connected that. And so I got to learn about your story and kind of got to see you from the outside, but I want to actually get sort of your personal journey in the travel space, because you have been in the travel space for quite some time now. So can you kind of give us a little bit of the early days of Sam, kind of the early days of Sam in the hospitality industry, in travel, and kind of your early start?
Well, first of all, is it Jelani or Yelani? I should pronounce your name correctly.
It's Jelani, but you know what? I think I might want to adopt Jelani.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
It does sound cool.
Yeah. See, we all learn something new here with
Yes.
this podcast recording.
Right.
But,
I think I might take
but
that
anyway,
one.
Jelani, it's really an honor to be here. And I'm so delighted to actually have a chance to have a discussion with you, because it's like walking down the memory lane for me. When I look at what you want to speak about, then I had to start to think a lot. Where I've been, how long have I been traveling, and all this was just kind of coming together. And it's not. I normally look at what's happening today and the future, but now I had a chance to look back a little bit. But so shortly about me, I was born in Sweden, in Stockholm. And early on, we moved to Finland, to Helsinki, which I consider my hometown. And I traveled actually. You want to know how long I've been in my travel ages, how long I've been traveling. And in fact, when we lived in Sweden, I traveled for the first time when I was 6 or 7 years old. I took the first, I think, plane ride, in fact, at that time with a DC-3 at that time, which a long time ago. To Helsinki. So yeah, it's 66 years and counting. So has been a long journey. But I think I was fascinated about travel. I mean, all my life, I read books when I was a kid about people traveling to faraway places. And also there were books that relate to the kids in my age of where they want to be. And there was always someone who was ending up at some Southern Pacific island. And so I was so fascinated about those environments. And I was dreaming about, well, I wish one day I can have a chance to visit all those places. I mean, so that kind of stayed with me and actually stays with me continuously. So fast forward, I traveled actually during high school. At that time, there was kind of cheap trips. You could take tours by train. And for students, you can get a pretty cheap ticket. So I traveled around Europe by train by myself. And from Helsinki to Stockholm and then on, I went all the way around. And that time, there was still a Czechoslovakia. At that time, there was still East Berlin. So I saw those very shortly, very kind of a different way of looking at things and what I was used to. But that's how I learned to. I started to travel and had lots of curiosity. But what happened was then when I got my first job, that was working in a hotel. So people ask me, "What's your job?" Well, I'm a lifetime hotelier or a hotel manager, and I started doing that in a reception. But I realized that I can actually make a living and I travel in the same time. So I can continue that story by answering the initial question.
Okay, perfect. So you pretty much were, as you said, a lifelong traveler. You almost are very mature in your travel age than most of us who are getting started and getting used to it. So we definitely are seeking your wisdom. But you actually tapped into sort of my next question because you sort of were able to turn traveling into a job or career, or that was your first job by joining the hospitality industry by working at a hotel. So, how did you get from being sort of a normal high school individual into, or I guess what you guys would call a secondary school individual into a your first hotel job?
Well, it started by actually it's the wisdom of my mother who told me, "Well, get a job, kid."
Yeah, we all were there.
So I think everybody can relate to this. And I was very fortunate. My parents went to hotels and they went to restaurants, and I was exposed to staying, having nice meals in restaurants, and so I really liked that atmosphere of a hotel lobby. And I thought that, well, that could be something I could create a career, or I didn't think about that as a career at that point, but to get a job in a hotel. And so that was really how I initially I got the spark from my parents about having a chance to stay in some hotels and also enjoying some meals in some nice restaurants. And I enjoy good food. I enjoy nice environments like hotels. So that kind of clicked right away. And I interviewed for a job in Helsinki. But at that time, the hotel owner had several hotels, and he had a very nice, iconic hotel outside Helsinki, about hour drive from Helsinki, in a place called Porvoo, which is very old city. And outside that city, there is a iconic hotel called Haikko Manor, which is a manor that has been, or a mansion that has been there for several hundred years. And an entrepreneur couple bought that and renovated so it became what we would call now a boutique hotel. So I became a what they call at that time a portier, or receptionist. And so it was a hands-on learning, really. I spent we had the work shifts, which probably is illegal these days. So I worked. I had a 24-hour shift every 4 days, so 9 in the morning and 9 until next morning. But the beauty of that time to work for 24 hours, you get to know every aspect of a hotel operation, from check-in to doing night audit and parking the cars, because it was only one guy who looked after everything in that hotel of 45 rooms, and that was the receptionist or portier on duty. So, and that was me. So that gave me sort of the exposure, and majority of the guests were international, mostly European and some Americans also. It was a very popular hotel for people coming for a day to Helsinki. So they went on a sightseeing tour to see this interesting hotel. And I had a chance to do guided tours for the guests visiting. So that's how I also polished my English at the time, to deal with all kinds of questions and so on, which I really enjoyed. So that's how I got started with the hotel job, and then actually it led to something more than I never thought of.
Wow. And what did it lead you to?
Well, my dream was to become a general manager of a hotel. That was my dream at the time.
It's a good dream. It's a good dream.
Yeah, it was a good dream. I thought I was aiming high, I thought. And then I realized that with the system in Finland, we only had very few hotel chains, kind of very structured. And you only got promoted to general manager by seniority that you had. So I looked at, well, but if this is the way it's going, I'm going to be quite old before I become a general manager. So I said, well, no, that doesn't work for me at all. And I had this idea of that I want to be a general manager before I'm 30. That's what was my plan. So I asked some friends, well, what I should do. So they suggested, well, why don't you apply for a scholarship to go to US, Canada, or Australia, and become a trainee in a hotel and create a career that way. So I sent out a lot of applications, and I didn't hear anything for a longest time. but finally from a scholarship fund that was initially founded by a Danish entertainer called Victor Borge at the time. He was a pianist, and he was someone who had survived the tough times of the Second World War, and being a Jew, he then moved to US and became a larger than life musical comedian, in fact. And he founded this the foundation called Thanks to Scandinavia. That was the name of the foundation. That basically how the Scandinavians had helped the Jews during the Second World War. And this foundation gave a chance to every year four young professionals to get like a trainee visa to US. So they replied to me from this foundation then, and then I was said, well, Sam, we have a couple of opportunities for you. I said, oh, that sounds very interesting. So where? Well, we have this hotel in Holiday Inn. Have you heard of Holiday Inn? Yes, I heard of Holiday Inn. Well, this is in Missouri. And in fact, where the Holiday Inn hotel exists, there is a Holiday Inn University. So you can get a job at the hotel and then can start studying there. So I said, okay, so what's the other alternative? Well, we have a resort in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It's owned by a media personality whose name was Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner. Okay. So what's the name of the resort? Well, it's called Playboy Resorts. So my thoughts were very quick. I want to go to Playboy Resort rather than going to Holiday Inn. So that's where I went. So that's where I went, and I spent 3 years there, and it was a really wonderful time in terms of professional experience, and a lot of people, kids in my age, a lot of what we call at that time the Playboy bunnies were college students coming for the summer. The resort was it was a partly private membership resort at the time, when they had these Playboy key member clubs, and they had showrooms, Las Vegas style of showrooms. So we had a chance to meet entertainers, and 2 golf courses and a private airstrip and all kinds of activities. So it was really what I was exposed to, really a world-class resort in this Lake Geneva area. But that also led me to my next step in my career, where I said, well, actually the threat was that I have to return to Finland because my student visa would expire. So as a work visa, so I had to come up with some ideas. So I decided, well, I want to be a student and study again, continue my studies. So I applied for the student visa, and with the support of my employer at that time, they kind of co-sponsored me then to study in a junior college first in not far away where I worked, and eventually then I got enough credits to apply for a university. So I looked around at where should I go, and I was always looking for a place where I could work in the same time, because I wasn't blessed with a lot of money, so I have to work and to study. So I applied to UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and they sent me a positive reply. So there I went. I moved to Las Vegas, left Playboy after had a great time. I packed my things in a U-Haul and drove an old Chevy across the country to Las Vegas and became a full-time student. So that basically gave me the exposure of firstly coming to US and working in a world-class resort. Secondly, studying in a city that was basically about entertainment and gaming, and having world-class lecturers and a great college program. But actually, it also set me up for my success in the future. But with having during the senior year, all the hotel chains recruiters came to interview senior students. And so I worked very hard to study what these hotel campuses were about in order to get as many offers as I could. And so I landed quite a few offers and had a chance to travel on second interviews and joined Hyatt International, as it was called at that time. And that led me to an international career.
Wow. It's almost like you were able to, in your training stage, to cover a plethora of areas that are needed in the hospitality management space. because even in Lake Geneva at the Playboy resort or mansion, you had to sort of deal with, fine dining and also very white collar service, sorry, white glove service. Then also when you get to Las Vegas, you're actually kind of getting the book work, sort of the brain work of hospitality management. Is that right?
Well, Playboy was interesting that I had a chance to. I started in the reception because that's where I came from, but I wanted to work in restaurants or food and beverage. So during that time, well, they told me, well, Sam, I mean, you got to start in the back of the restaurant. So that's meaning you're becoming a kitchen steward, which means these are the guys who are cleaning the pots and pans and clean them up for the cooks to cook the meal. And they in fact gave me like a night steward job, which means the night cleanup of the area. So after restaurants were closed, there's a crew coming to clean all the kitchens and so on. So that was my job initially, because they want to see whether I have whether I could pull it off before they gave me the white gloves to serve someone. And it was really my first step into supervising a team. And I'm always grateful because of that time. The crew was basically international students studying in a nearby university, and because they needed to get some money, they got a job as in the night cleaning crew. So I had on my team, I had from several. I had Iranian students, I had Pakistani students, I have from Africa, I had from China, everywhere, and it was in that way it was my first initial international experience to working with the international crew in the state. It was a lesson because I didn't know much, but I just want to be friendly to everyone and explain that, hey, we got to get this clean, guys. And of course, understanding these guys have been studying the day before, and now they come directly to clean a kitchen was not the most motivating job for them. So it took some negotiation that we got everything clean before the breakfast cooks came in. But it was a great learning experience. The second part was then that once I got into next level of service was then restaurants. So when you mentioned white glove service, that actually it was a restaurant called VIP Room. That was the formal dining room of the Playboy Resort. Mm-hmm. And again, I started from being what they called the busboy at that time, and then waiter, and then the captain, and the cocktail waiter. So I did all those things, and so I had my own shift. And of course, there's always an anecdote related to everything. So one of the things I enjoy most was that because it was tableside cooking. So of course that's entertainment basically, not so much of the quality, but it's basically you're creating your Caesar salads in front of the guest and and making these flamed coffee drinks. And so it's all at that time I really was into boxing. I mean, not actual boxing, but I was enjoyed following heavyweight boxing. So there were these world-class matches at the time with Muhammad Ali and so on. And so there was a match, he was coming up, and so I created a coffee drink by mixing some brandy and Kahlua, whatever it was, and whipped cream and flaming it. And I gave it a name that was like a Muhammad Ali coffee drink. So it gave me some extra tips when I was convincing the dinner guest to have that after the meal. But so it was just being a little bit coming up with resourceful at that time. But it was a fun time. I had a lot of fun. And the final job, which was then in Playboy, I was a captain again. That was at the Playboy Club itself. That was Key Members Club. Mm-hmm. So that was only for somebody who has a membership, and basically it's a supper club for the members, and with jazz and so on. So that was a really nice time. And then eventually I had to thank Playboy for giving a great time and learning opportunity, and then moved to Vegas. And Vegas again was a interesting time, and because I was working as a waiter in an Italian restaurant part-time, or I was working in a steakhouse. And I had a chance to also work in the casino hotels, and had a chance to get exposure how the hotels work from that side in a practical way. And we had also a number of trips with the university, going to Lake Tahoe I was sales agent or sales rep for a catering department for Sands Hotels. So that gave me really firsthand exposure to the different type of entertainment and hospitality.
Wow. Okay. And I want to know, because you got your start through the blessing of this foundation that was able to sort of take you in and get your kick in. Do these type of foundations still exist for
Well,
international students to kind of be able to learn and grow in the hospitality industry?
the most students these days, the route for them for international career is that they go to a hotel school, and through the school get a management training position, and that's how they evolve. And I'm not surprised. And maybe thanks to Scandinavia, it's based in New York, so it might still exist. It still exists, and but that was my way of. I found my bearings to hospitality that way, and I would have never got into all this what I did if it wouldn't be for thanks to Scandinavia, Playboy, and UNLV, and then Hyatt. That was all that. That was sort of the sequence, how things worked for me. And I think for every single one, they have their own story how in their career, and mine was this one.
That's what I like to hear. It's pretty much it's unique to you. I'm very sure there's others who are similar to you, but as time has changed, the process has evolved a little bit, or maybe it's just different now. So but I was very interested to hear that, because you don't hear that in other industries where a foundation normally blesses sort of the training or the learning of a new skill or business in industry over time. So it's a pretty unique case that you kind of were able to sort of hold on your own.
Yeah.
So you get to Hyatt. How different was Hyatt from your time in Las Vegas, and also your time in Lake Geneva at the Playboy Mansion? Because it's much more corporate.
Sure, it was very corporate, but I didn't feel it being restrictive in the sense. And the Hyatt where I worked was located in Dallas, so Dallas Reunion Arena. So it was like 1,000-room hotel for meeting and incentive businesses, and there's of course the sports arena next to the hotel. So a lot of the sports teams, basketball teams, were staying in the hotel, and so on. It was very large operation, so it was something which I had to kind of adapt to how in a large scale operations things worked, and that's one of my learnings. But also Hyatt at that time, and also nowadays, it was a very innovative hotel company in terms of food and beverage, and that's really was what attracted me most to join Hyatt. I had interviewed for what was called Sheraton, and before I basically interviewed for several hotel companies, and Hyatt gave me the offer among others, and I picked Hyatt because of their how innovative they were. And I learned from the director of food and beverage of Hyatt at that time, who still is a good friend of mine. So it's a shout out to David Kong, if you listen to this episode, that I learned a lot from him, and he's an active podcaster also. So he has a number of things, and so but he taught me quite a bit from that time as my second traineeship, because I became a trainee again by going to Hyatt. I was a trainee at Playboy. I studied in UNLV, and then became a trainee at the Hyatt before they gave me a permanent position. But it led me to the career in food and beverage, and in a hotel unit internationally after that.
Beautiful. So pretty much Hyatt was a sort of another fresh start for you to kind of learn and grow, despite you having previous experience, because of how innovative Hyatt is.
Yes.
And I would agree that Hyatt is still innovative today. And I think that's basically sort of routed in their business model. They try to stray away from the normal.
Yeah, because I one of the reasons I left Finland at the time, because what we called international hotels and the standardized hotels were so stuck in the way how things are, and I couldn't see where's the innovation, where is it was standard operating manuals, not what no standard operating manuals and processes came first, not the guest, and that really was not my thing, and
Of
still not.
course. Right. People forget that, being in, just because it's a hotel, it's a big building, but it's almost like own its own society, its own community. And you have to be very creative. You have to be very innovative within that community. I think it kind of gets missed because you just see the building, you see the logo, and you see a room. But there's so many things that are happening in this organism, in that
Sure.
organism that kind of can change everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's the soul of the hotel is basically the people who serves the guest and the atmosphere, and it all starts from the top about the management, what tone they set to that environment, and how that message of customer care and everything trickles down to every level, and that everybody speaks the same sings the same song.
Of course, of course. So, how long were you at Hyatt? Because I know you were a trainee. Did you ever get to that general manager position?
Not with Hyatt, unfortunately. I think I became an executive resident manager, which was the one step
Wow.
before general manager, and that was in Kuwait.
Okay.
So I had been opening hotels with Hyatt in South Korea and Jeju Island, and I also worked shortly in Seoul, and then my next posting was to Kuwait, and
Wow.
that was a different culture, but still a Hyatt. And the Hyatt was, which I didn't know at the time, that there was a change in relationship with Hyatt, and then the owner wanted to operate the hotel as a private or individual owner operated hotel. It's called, meaning that they created their own brand. So they asked me to stay with them, and they gave me, and I had to think very hard whether it was wise to leave Hyatt or whether to stay with Hyatt. And at that time, I think my decision was to stay with the owner because he gave me a very good opportunity, and so that I parted ways with Hyatt with that decision.
Okay. So basically, you were in how long? So how long were you in the States for?
7 years.
7 years, and then basically after the States was Kuwait.
Yes.
Okay. And then how long were you in Kuwait?
Kuwait, I was 3 years, and after 3 years, I had an opportunity to return to Finland. I was married, and my wife also. Kuwait was an interesting experience, but we felt that we liked Kuwait. We had a great time there, but I also was thinking maybe it's an opportunity now. I'm married, that we are returning to Finland. So we moved back to Finland, and I joined the Intercontinental Group
Oh,
in Helsinki, and then I was number two of that hotel, which was nice to actually come back to Helsinki and work for an international branded hotel at the time.
okay. And then I'm glad you brought that up. So how was it? Was there much of a difference between Intercontinental and the independent operator hotel that you were at in Kuwait? I know it was once Hyatt, but now it's a sort of independent owned.
Yes, I mean when you work for in the owner-operated hotel, independent hotel, the owners have their pretty much an idea what they have a vision for the hotel, and it might be in terms of standards and services and what kind of level of luxury they want to offer to the hotel to their guests, and the owning company or the family, in fact, have very high standards. So it was very higher standards than I ever seen in my life in terms of luxury. It was truly a luxury hotel where we had the finest bed linen from Italy. They had duvets in beds, and very elaborate decorations. You had I mean, huge chandeliers, crystal chandeliers from Europe. So it was, and also different kind of restaurant. There was a Lebanese restaurant, and Lebanese cuisine is considered to be very good. And we had a chef from Lebanon, or actually a team in that Lebanese restaurant. We had a French restaurant. So we had a variety of restaurant. We had, in fact, a chocolate shop from Switzerland, and
that's
it was
good.
Godiva chocolate. They have
Oh,
their own
yes.
shop in that hotel at that time, and it was quite a great. And they were very good in merchandising. So their merchandising skills were unbelievable. Putting on crystal bowls, this chocolate, and selling to the customer. The customer is paying for the chocolate and the bowl in the same time. So
That's a very nice added touch to
yeah,
the
yeah.
hotel. So is it effectively you were basically back in Helsinki and you stayed there for most of the rest of the career?
No, those are just it was a short couple of years.
Okay.
I had Moscow or Russia was opening up the glasnost at that time,
Oh,
and
wow.
there was a joint venture between Finnair and Intourist, which is it was a Russian Soviet alternative to travel agency, and they had a joint venture, and they were reopening a hotel in old Moscow, and so they are because the Finnair was the owner of Intercontinental Hotel. So basically, from the management team of the hotel I worked at, we were then sent to Moscow to reopen the hotel after it had been fully renovated. So it's one of the most beautiful hotels I've ever been to, which is a hotel from, I think it's from the early 1920s.
Okay.
And it was called Hotel Berlin. No, it was called Savoy at the time. It was the most elaborate hotel of its era. Then it was changed names, and then when it was reopened again, it was with the same hotel as name as Savoy. So it was a luxurious hotel. But I was there just to support the team, so I didn't really stay very long. But it is a kind of a memorable time to be in a very interesting city at the interesting time. So. But returning from Moscow back to Helsinki, I was called by Hyatt
Oh,
again.
Wow.
Yeah. So they called me, hey, we need you. So they asked me if I want to become a project manager for their project in Bali to open up in Nusa Dua, Bali, a hotel. So that's where I went as a project manager, not as a hotel manager, but it usually is during the construction period of the hotel. So that's where I went.
Bali is a great stop.
Not bad.
Definitely, yeah, not a bad one. It's very tough to turn that opportunity down.
Yeah, well, that's what happened, and again the stop to Bali then opened up my eyes to Southeast Asia and also how life was there. So I stay with my wife working in Bali initially. Worked also in Yogyakarta, which is Central Java, very interesting culturally, and of course in Jakarta. And then from then on, I moved to Thailand, and initially in Bangkok, and then to Phuket Island. That was basically my stint after I left Finland to Bali. So that's a continuation.
Did you notice other major hotel brands or independent owned hotels being built up at that time? Because Bali's almost fully developed at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you mean Bali?
Well, or Southeast Asia. Let's just kind of
Well, no, it was a dynamic growth. I mean, led by Singapore and
yes.
Jakarta was the second area where some new hotels were coming up, but Singapore was definitely the area where there was an explosive growth, and then followed eventually with Jakarta. And Bali was growing slowly at that time. Few international hotels, but you would not recognize. I would not recognize Bali as I knew at that time. At that time, now because it looks very different, and numerous hotels. So that was a big change. But of course, then you have. I didn't have a chance to work, but Kuala Lumpur, a very dynamic city for growth. Bangkok also grew tremendously during the time I was in there, with a number of international hotels, and still expanding, because Thailand has a very strong image as a destination for people to go on holiday, and it's a great business destination.
Wonderful to hear that, because as we see a lot of development happen in many different countries, there's always a pushback to hotel development um, in these sort of developing countries where they don't, there's fights over land and there's fights over how much of this hotel is going to change the culture. So I want to know if in any one of these particular areas you ran up against that sort of vocal community against developing in a particular space.
I personally did not run into, but I can appreciate that concern of changing the culture. I think it also is because it speaks very loudly of the ignorance of the hotel developers and particularly the hotel brands that came in, that they did not embrace the community. In fact, at that time, many hotels or resorts, it was like a gated community only for hotel guests.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and so that is. That's not today anymore. That has changed completely. We don't have gates where, for a hotel where the property you have only hotel guests. In fact, you embrace community because that's the key to success nowadays for a successful resort. But at that time, it was considered a way of controlling it, if you will, and of course that created pushback. Pushback in the sense that there was a resistance from the parents of the staff, because the job in hospitality was not considered to be a respectable job for some family daughters or so on. They thought it was not attractive or morally even suitable for them to be exposed to what kind of life in a hotel can be. But the respect for the profession has now moved on and changed because of that you're embracing the community. And people always ask me, well, Sam, what is your definition of hospitality? And it relates to how I started the career at the Heiko Manor House, where to me it was the customer is king. That's how I knew it at that time. Now today, my definition of hospitality is community. You embrace the community, and the community will support you. So that's how I look at it in 2024.
No, it's a wonderful creed to live by, especially if you're in hospitality. Yes, community is king. That's a good way to put it.
There you go. Yes.
So as your career evolved for being a trainee, now you're more on the development, the project management side. Were you involved in design, or were you more involved in service? Which aspect? Or was it kind of all in one?
Well, what happened in Thailand, I was a general manager of hotel in a city hotel in Bangkok, and then on Phuket Island, I was a general manager of a resort. And there was a great time from career point of view to manage these hotels when tourism was booming, and you have service is kind of it comes from the mother's blood, if you know. They are very service orientated and very friendly people, and so that was really a fantastic time for the years in Thailand. But one thing led to another. The company I worked for, which was the name was Dusit International, a Thai-based hotel company, they wanted to expand to Middle East, and they were planning of opening a regional office in Dubai. And so they told me that, well, Sam, we have an opportunity, if you're willing to make a move, that to open up a regional office in Dubai. And so what would be my role? Well, development. Okay, well, who can tell me how that works? No, you just go there and you figure it out. So that was my job, to figure it out. And so we moved with my wife to Dubai, and we stayed there from 2005 until 2013. And that was a very interesting chapter in the career after that.
Yeah, that's a pretty lengthy time to be in Dubai.
Yeah. You could see how the city was growing. Definitely, yes. It was really, the speed was unbelievable, and it's a place with still one of the most dynamic places in the world. I mean, there are many dynamic places, but Dubai is very dynamic.
It's dynamic and it's rapid. I mean, the boom is it's almost uncharted to hear what they're doing over there. It's impressive in that sense. Yeah. So you mentioned you guys had moved to Dubai. So you're moving in these different hospitality locations that you've been sort of shipped off to? You're not just sort of there for a quick time and then go back to Finland. You're
No,
actually, yeah.
yeah, because of that, I think this is essentially when anyone who loves to travel, you normally spend maybe up to 3 months in a place and then you go back.
Right.
But I think that there's a difference if you are moving to a place and you work there and you have to adapt to the culture, you have to adapt to how things are working there, and it takes a whole cycle, a full year, to fully appreciate the changes of the seasonality and understanding the culture in terms of traditions and all that, and develop networking relationships. You cannot develop a network by being 2 months somewhere and said, hey, I live there. You don't live there, you're just visiting. But if you actually live there, then you have something you can talk about, that I have lived in a place and this is what I learned and this is what worked for me and these were my challenges, So I had all those things wherever I worked. So I never, the only place which I was for a short time, in fact, was my stint in Moscow. That was just based from Helsinki, and then spent those few months there to assist in the opening. But the rest was packed my bags, or packed our bags and our furniture, whatever we had. We had an apartment,
Right.
and that's where we lived in a hotel. It was like 24/7. It was like a 24/7 job, 11 months a year, and then you have 1 month holiday.
Wow. Was there any particular location that was the most rewarding, a part of in your project building?
Well, I would say that they all have certain things that help me to grow more and more as a person and more in career-wise. Definitely the time in Thailand was career-wise. Also as a person, you kind of get mature how to handle things. Dubai career was very, very interesting because it was development and understanding to how to develop relationships with, as they call nationals, or the Dubai nationals, who are usually family offices. They are mostly or semi-government, and to kind of nurture those, understanding how they think, and more importantly, it's really a personal relationship that you develop. You don't develop a business relationship with anybody. You establish a personal relationship, and personal relationship eventually becomes a business relationship if there's a trust that has been developed between the person that you meet and yourself. I had numerous coffees. It was a popular thing that you meet somebody in a hotel lobby for a coffee. That was basically a meeting. You sit there, you just talk or chit chat about everything in life, and never pull up a iPad or a laptop to show a presentation or any of that. You talk about just you're present with that person for that time, and listen to what he has to say. You listen more than you talk, and you kind of evaluate then what would be the next move. And usually the time is that if you have developed a trust with the person, they will ask that, well, actually I have a piece of land there and I'm building a hotel that would you be interested to look at? That's the time when things will happen, but not before that. It is very narrow-minded to think that, well, you walk in, you said, I'm from this company and this is our presentation and I'll give you an offer, and it doesn't work that way.
No, and I like that approach that you mentioned. It's very physical, it's face-to-face, it's very communicative. And do you still see that today in the hospitality industry?
In Middle East, yes. Definitely in Middle East, it's a face-to-face coffee culture. What I do these days I'm not directly in hotels any longer, but I work with an architectural firm. So majority of the first meetings are basically online meetings. And then if after an offer has been accepted, then there's a workshop, and then you actually eventually, that's when you meet the players in the projects, but not before that. So, but I think it's very important that to retain that feel that you, even though you meet somebody online, that you know how to look somebody digitally in their eye through the camera and try to create that relationship, even though it's kind of cold in ways. Not this, you cannot. There's not that body language, and the chemistry is very difficult to develop. But it is possible to develop initially, I think. But I think you have to work hard on it, so you don't become. You are not seen very cold and mechanical, and so that's what is important. And then once you meet the person physically, then I think the connection goes very smoothly after that. That you have able to create that connection.
No, and a lot of that was born. I mean, or at least been emphasized even greater due to the pandemic. The hospitality industry was forced into going digital and having to learn how to convey emotion in that connectivity through a digital lens, through a camera.
That's right.
So, yeah. So, my question is, have you noticed that the hospitality industry is finally accepting digital and sort of now making sure that they're learning new ways to communicate through the digital platforms and such?
Definitely. I think that's hotel business in general has been sort of the behind the curve in accepting technology, and I think that if nothing else, the COVID kind of escalated the transition into using technology more and more, and simply it was because the customers were safety conscious about distance, and you had a keyless entry to hotels, and you had an app you can use your mobile device for everything, to booking and then to check in, to check out. And if you really didn't want to meet anyone from the hotel, you can actually have your stay. And this was really, some hotels, in fact, or some guests were really expecting this. But also then moving on to the technology, after what we call the pandemic. I mean, it's not that long ago when suddenly ChatGPT and AI became a thing, right?
Right.
A little bit over a year, right?
A little bit, yeah. Just shy.
November,
of it,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, publicly it has been around, of course, and then that escalated just the use of AI to the sense of hospitality at best is data driven, at least for initially of the pre-arrival, what I call a pre-arrival for the guest. Basically, you have a lot of information on hand that you could use to customize the guest experience before they arrive. So this is now what hotel companies are doing much better than ever before. But I think then there's a couple of things which I want to talk about. One is the acceptance of social media marketing, and the second part is how to not to use the third party, particularly like a booking.com or Expedia. I mean, great companies, right? But they're also very expensive to buy their services from. Yeah. So, well, first of all, maybe I'd start with the booking.com. Independent hotels, when they start, they usually end up signing up with a booking.com because it's easy. Booking.com does all the marketing. It's a fantastic platform that has developed over the years, and one-stop shop where you can book your flight, you can book your hotel, and the recommendation of what you're going to do, and so on. And you pay hefty commissions, over 20% maybe at this point, on the room rate. And then if you want to, you want them to flag your hotel, maybe pay an extra percentage so that you're on the top of the list of recommendations. And then some smart hotels, and this is what I've been enjoying sharing on my different social media platforms, is that there's an alternative where you look at some companies who do not use these third parties, like Aman Hotels. They have their own website, but also there are other hotel companies or brands that are using social media very cleverly to create a story and a reason for them to visit the hotel. And I was teaching a class at the university here in Helsinki. I created a video marketing for hospitality program, which included, it was just before pandemic, in fact, which was teaching individual hotels how to use social media, even if you're on a shoestring budget, how you can actually use the Instagrams, Facebook, if that's the customer group, how to use TikTok or how to use LinkedIn in this way. And actually, I'm a firm believer in video marketing in many ways with the short videos, which is now the normal thing that you have stories and shorts and so on. So I was teaching that, and I was surprised that how few hotels actually picked up on this idea, because I was basically handing over a great solution on a silver platter for them to use, and you can actually do it in-house. You don't need to hire an agency for that. You can actually do it yourself, and then to use the social media platforms like those to learn and reach out to guests and actually ask the right questions, the CTA, call to action, and actually learn from them. And that's how you then customize the service elements for the guest and so on, and for your future guests.
No, then that's perfect. Are you noticing that more hotels are utilizing the social media platforms that you've been advertising or encouraging for them to adopt?
Sure. I mean, of course, that's handy. Now, fast forward 2024, you see some great hotel companies and brands who are using in the resort environment. They are very active on Instagram. And they have a dedicated staff who are trained to handle that. When it was starting, I remember a W Hotel in Doha, Qatar. They were starting, like W Hotel was very trendy hotel. Maybe it still is. Yeah. So they started to use Instagram at that time to promote their presence for guests. But they were using, and that's a mistake. What happens? You're taking two of the staff who was not trained. They'll use social media for their private accounts and so on. So now the hotel thinks, well, since they do that, maybe they know how to use it on as a platform for a hotel. It doesn't work that way. You have to really train somebody, and you have to think strategically. How can I train my keen person who loves to be on social media? How can I train them to become better in actually talk about this and reach out to the customer? They can reach to you over the mobile device. That's no problem. But actually, to use that as a business tool they need a lot of training. And this is something that finally we can see hotels that are cleverly. There's a resort in the Doha case was that the girls were just walking around with a mobile device and having camera showcasing the buffet, and they said, "Here's a nice buffet," and it was basically there. I said, "Well, it looks very nice," but I would say that there's a resort in Malaysia, which is a great resort that has really taken to heart this. They have a team because it's next to a national park, so they're having nature walks, where you have a team that describes the tour, and they do it live or they do it pre-recorded about the place. They also have every 2 years they are they have a professionally made film with a professional script about the story about my life in this hotel or my visit to that hotel, and then they send this film as a short film to Cannes Film Festival. Mm-hmm. Can you believe it?
Wow,
Cannes
that's
Festival.
Impressive.
Yeah, to me too.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. So, of course, it's up a big chunk of their budget, but they do it every 2 years. But every day they have just a short clips about everyday life in the hotel. Yeah. Even the general manager, can you believe? And general manager is on the device and telling a few interesting things, what's happening. And this is really if there's any general managers listening, get used to using the mobile device and be in front of the camera, because this is there's no other way.
It's a new way to reach people, honestly.
Yeah.
The camera is the video is pretty much the new commercial. And I do talk to quite a number of social media influencers who travel social media influencers who are seeking deals with hotels or hospitality firms as to be sort of their advertising arm in a way. And you're right that it needs to be done strategically. There does need to be a training to it because the way that, for an example, the way that Aman wants to reach his audience is different from the way maybe a General Marriott is trying to reach his audience. And just highlighting a buffet might not be the might not be the way to go.
Well, I took a very extreme example, but that's
Yeah.
it's from true life.
I know. I'm just making fun of you now. Um, so you now, I'm impressed by your story and your career, and you now are able to share your wisdom through your consultancy firm to others through the architectural firm you're a partner with, also to other hospitality companies as well, and also individuals such as myself. How have you noticed any major changes in the hospitality industry from when you first started to today?
Yes, definitely, because it's an evolving industry depending on the travel public. I mean, the people who are traveling. We are taking to, there's a generation shift where you have the generation who travels and they want to see the world on their terms, and they
Yeah.
are critical about where they're going. They are very social media savvy. They know how to get the best deal. They are environmentally awake, and they are very loud. And if somebody's trying to sell them a greenwashed product or a hotel, and they will drop you like a cold banana. You are not. It's not good enough that you're saying that we don't have plastic straws in a hotel anymore. That's not really
Right.
what you have to be able to be in detail, able to say what sustainable actions have you been taking, and it's not going to a PR department. It should be any staff in the hotel can tell in practicality what does sustainability mean to them. So it means that it's something that's being
Sustainability.
used. Yeah, so that's one of the things, and I think the generation is the generation now who's traveling, the young generation who's traveling is vocal, and they will continue to be vocal because they're concerned that they have to live on this planet a little bit longer than the older guys, so they want to make sure whatever is being done are done responsibly. So that's one side. Then we take sort of the generation of boomers, baby boomers, who have traditionally we've been looking at the aging population as that once you reach 50, 60, basically that's end of useful life, you're retired from a job and so on. But in fact, it's the brains are still working, and there are a lot of things you can do. And I belong to that generation who is the baby boomer. And I started to study social media about 10 years ago. I started my own podcast channel, The Social Hotelier. Sorry for the plug, but anyway,
No, yeah.
that's my plug.
Yeah.
And,
Add it in,
and
leave it
I,
in there.
yeah, and then I started with this hospitality talks with my friend Abid Butt during the pandemic on YouTube, where we interviewed all the hoteliers that we could not reach when they were busy, but during the pandemic they had a lot of time on their hands. So we reached out to about over 200 world-class hoteliers, and you can find the episode still in the hospitality talks. And on the Social Hotelier channel on YouTube and as a podcast, I interview continuously thought leaders and also hoteliers, and not only hoteliers, but people who are relating to the future of hospitality. So we talk about those burning issues. So in that way, it's very important that the generation that has been thought that they're not doing anything anymore, actually they are living a full life at their choice, and they're creating opportunities for themselves. And I belong to that generation.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, the change is sustainability, responsibility, and then also this engagement with through social media.
Yeah.
Yes, and everybody, I'm a huge fan of hospitality talks, and I'm also a huge fan of the social hotelier. So yes, definitely, your plug is well deserved and it's well timed.
Thank you.
All right. I do want to get to more of the travel side of yourself. So even though
Yeah.
you were able to traverse through many different terrains and different places for your career, did you ever have any time to actually adventure at any of those locations?
Yeah, I have to admit, because I was working all the time, it was very little time. But the times where I had a chance to explore places which were special to me was mostly on extension of business trips, and
Okay.
or I had a chance to go to a place. And I was thinking about that. What would be my three favorite urban places where which I have ventured out and enjoyed special moments. So I would not necessarily any importance, but they are all great because they share a similar historical time. So Valletta in Malta, which is one of my favorite cities, small towns, medieval. And then Jerusalem, because of the history, they are from the same similar time period.
Beautiful.
And then, of course, I like Venice. So
Venice,
they
okay.
all yeah. So and what is special about those places that you can get lost. You can walk and you get lost in those how they were built, these small things. And I like the buzz in those kind of old cities. But then when it comes to places which has nature, definitely with my wife, we used to go on weekends when we lived in Yogyakarta. There's an active volcano. Well, it's not so active, but it's a volcano. We usually drove up as much as we could to take a look at the view and had a meal. So we tried to venture out to those areas. That's sort of to the extent of, yeah, I done some in Indonesia. We did some fishing trips to not far away from famous famous island called Krakatau Island, which doesn't exist, but the little Anak Krakatau, the little Krakatau, which is a volcanic island. So it was from a resort that was opening. It was about 2 hour boat trip, and it was
Okay.
full of this volcanic ashes. And we went to take a look how it looks like, and it was quite spooky, but very interesting.
That's a very interesting trip, honestly. That's a
Yeah,
nice sort of quick getaway while you're away.
yeah, yeah.
Did you ever get to do any solo travel outside of work?
My only solo travel really was when I did the train trip. My first trip, in fact, by train through Europe, and
Okay.
that was I went by myself at that time, and I enjoyed meeting people. So on the train, you meet a lot of people, and it was actually we tend to the people I met was somebody who was staying in Stockholm. So we spent the day together in Stockholm, and
Mhm.
they were going somewhere else, and I took the train, continued to Germany, and so on. Ended up in Hungary, and was a Hungarian couple who had been immigrated somewhere else. So I met them on the train, and we spent the day together and had a meal together. And then I had actually I used to read a book about some very unique, it's called the Holy Spear or Holy Lance, which is a kind of considered to be the spearhead that what was the Roman soldier who penetrated Jesus at the time, and it actually is a relic. So then I read a book about this, and they said you got to go and see this relic. And so I said, well, where do you have to go? Well, you have to go to Vienna. So it was on. I went to Vienna, and it still exists there. So if anybody go to Vienna, that's the imperial treasury of Hofburg Palace. It exists, and you're supposed to, if you are sensitive enough, you see this holy lance or the holy spear, you should feel something. I have to admit, I didn't feel anything. I just saw I saw through the glass the spear. But I was always curious about when I read about something unique things or unique things. I enjoy go to visit those museums. Also, a great fan of art. So during my travels, I did that. But I think more than anything was able to meet new people on the train during those solo trips, which made life very fruitful. And I kept in touch with some people for the longest time.
Beautiful. Wonderful. I like to hear that, honestly. I always completely encourage solo travel, and I love to hear about others' solo adventures or travels as well. Um, I know you have a big day ahead of you. So before I let you go, we like to ask these pay me in plane tickets quick quirky questions. Maybe it slips you up a little bit. We'll see if we get you. Let's see. So if you had to get paid in plane tickets, which airline are you choosing?
Finnair.
Finnair. Oh, the homeland.
Yes, indeed.
That's good. Is it the food? Is it the service? Is it great seats? What's it attractive?
It feels very safe to be in these elderly cabin crew who takes good care of you, and they're serving blueberry juice, which I like. So you get blueberry juice there.
Okay. So Finnair, which is actually I think it's the first time we've had that on this podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're leading the charge.
Yeah.
Now this next question might be easy because I think I might know the answer. Airbnb or hotel for you?
Hotel. You can ask me why.
Why is that?
Yeah, well, Airbnb, even though I like the idea, I don't feel it's so safe because of the
Okay.
reason that somebody may have a key to get in, and I don't feel
That's very
comfortable
true.
about that. Yeah, that's
Very
all.
true.
And hotels, I love hotels, but I also am quite critical, and that's not very good if you have a hotelier who stay in another hotel. Always, my wife complains that I keep on looking too much. I should just enjoy and relax, and I have sometimes difficulty. But we end up staying in hotels. We try to find the nicest, and there are small hotels these days. We don't stay in big name brand hotel necessary.
Okay. No, all right. No. Definitely hotels are reported safer. And of course, as we love hotels, we have this trained eye. We're always judgmental as we walk through the halls. But yeah, we should try to get a little relaxation.
Yeah.
Um, do you use a travel credit card or no for points or miles?
Yeah, I belong to them, but these days I don't travel as often as I did before. So I mean, those points doesn't really give me a lot of joy. But I'm a member to every single airline or hotel company, so I pull it out every time. And let's see, one of these days I get some benefit.
All right. Same here, same here. We talked about the joys of travel, but do you have any traveling pet peeves?
I always aisle seat, always,
You're with me.
always aisle seat, and I reserve enough water to drink. I like to drink a lot of water, and sometimes the cabin crew may not be very pleased because I'm always asking for more water. And I also, wherever I can, I try to bring my own water with me if I can get through my security. But I don't want to pay overpriced water after the security
No,
clearance.
fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah,
Honestly,
yeah,
yeah. Who wants to pay for overpriced water? So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I
But
can
I
I
drink.
can agree with that.
I drink water. That's my thing, which is important. I dehydrate in that cabin,
That's a
air
very
pressure, the
healthy,
environment.
that's a very
Yeah,
healthy pet
yeah,
peeve.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you're not doing 11-month stints in places, when you travel, is it a carry-on or check bag?
Uh, Mostly carry on if I can. Yeah, yeah,
Always on the go. That's the way it is.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Now this next one, you already kind of answered from your before. We always ask window, aisle, or middle, and so your aisle, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to make it interesting, if the aisle wasn't available, are you going for the window or the middle?
Well, if I don't get the aisle, actually, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm not too conscious about sitting in the middle. I'm cool with that. If it's a window, yeah, it's cool also. I mean, I can take some pictures of while landing or when the flight is taking off or something like that. But no, that's not. But I try to reserve a seat early enough that I have an aisle seat. And it's very important. You need to stretch your legs if it's a long flight and so on.
Okay.
And don't
Next,
disturb your other people sitting in the same row with you.
yeah. Okay. I can agree to that. I can agree to that. Um, if you had to travel to one location for the rest of your life, where would it be and why?
Well, I would say that Korea. My
Korea.
wife is Korean. My wife is Korean, so I have a very warm uh, feeling
Attachment.
about Korea. So that would be something I would definitely consider and so I worked and lived there for a while during my career. So it's a special place.
Beautiful. It's a warm attachment. I like that.
Yeah.
And last one, why is travel important?
For sanity. You have to be able to, you have to see new places, you have to learn things. And if you don't travel, life becomes very claustrophobic. So I think travel is a very important part of, and you learn, every time you travel, you learn something new. And particularly if you go to the same place that you have been before, the place has changed. And then you have a chance to expand your horizon and become a little bit wiser.
Yeah. No, I like that response. Sanity is important because definitely when we do travel, it does allow us to kind of clear our heads, refocus, reshift, and adjust while you're in a new location and come back home, kind of renewed.
Yeah, that's how I feel also. Yeah.
Sam, I'm so glad you were able to hop on. Is there anything upcoming for yourself? Any upcoming travels or business ventures you want to announce?
With the company I'm working with, we have some projects in Asia, so I think there might be some travel relating to new resort developments. Cannot be too specific at this point yet, but definitely that will be. And then Berlin trip, which will be in April, because that's the International Hotel Investment Forum. I'll be there for networking with industry professionals. And then Milan in May, I'm a keynote speaker at the Hospitality Design Conference in Milan. I think it's 8th of May. And before that, hopefully a couple of pleasure trips. We don't know where yet.
Yes. And for those who don't know, the Berlin event is similar to like Davos for business leaders in hospitality. Yes. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Sam, I'm so glad to have you on. I have always appreciated your wisdom. I keep my ears perked to anything that you say or write. And so it's been an honor to have you on. And just thank you for taking your time out of your day to hop on our podcast.
Well, I had a lot of fun. I mean, you helped me to kind of go think about going back to memory lane about what things have been going on during my career, and that. So thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed this discussion, and obviously I tried to share the best I could and of what I have done before, and hopefully this gives some joy to other people who are listening.
Yes, thank you. No, you did share a lot, and it's well appreciated over here. So on this side of the street.
Thank you, Jelani, or Yelani, as I wish you called you.
Yes, my new name's Yelani. That's it.